Hello, folks. I'm Dan Hollifield, and I usually open the show with some kind of smart-ass joke. Tonight, it's not called for. Um, we, the world, is now paying their respects to Queen Elizabeth II, who passed away earlier today. Yes, still today. Thank you. It's not Sunday, so I haven't switched days yet. Um, my wife being a British citizen is distraught and coping the best that she can and watching lots and lots of coverage. But Queen Elizabeth has died, and her son Charles has become King Charles III, and it is something he had, from what I'm told, hoped that he never would have had to do. But things happen, and we all have to learn to cope with the world as it shapes itself. And that's about as close as I'm going to get to the really nice eulogy that I did for Stupid O'Clock tonight. Joe Dog hit me up before showtime and asked me to do it because I have a way of saying things sometimes that are uh, profound and respectful and not silly. And that's great. And I appreciate the chance to do that. And if you want to see what I said, go back and watch Stupid O'Clock. It's going to be on YouTube from right now till the 12th of November, probably. But at the moment, we have got to go on with the show. And we've got Joe here and Rich, and we've got Donna and Carl in the audience, and we've got, I think it may be Keisha. I'm not sure. Hello, beautiful person. That is almost word for word, Keisha. So, hey, these things. What's the what's the phrase? The show must go on.
And Dan, it was absolutely beautiful. And I was a little weepy eyed.
Hey, so was I. I mean, I could just barely finish. Like I said, I had something I scripted out that had the basic facts and everything, and I looked at it and I go, This doesn't do justice. I'm just going to have to wing it." And that's what I did. And I do hope that it was good enough.
It said it hit the point. And I sent you the two pictures over to Facebook. One was the cartoon from the editorial illustrator. I think that's the fancy word for it now.
Uh-huh.
And also the one we closed with.
And I just sent Keisha an invitation, and
Awesome.
I'd sent Carl and Donna one earlier tonight. So if they want to pop in, that's fine too. Um,
Howdy, howdy, folks.
Oh, hi,
uh,
Rich. Sorry, we just.
hey, I said you was here, and I popped you on screen. Sorry. You know, a little bit off my game. Um,
And thanks for having me on Stupid O'Clock, Joe.
Hey, let's.
hey,
It's
you're
always
part of the
fun to talk to y'all.
you're part of the family now. So
And you never know what I'm going to say.
Death will not release you, as one college fraternity said long, long time ago. That turned up in several novels. I think it was at MIT. I'm not sure. Um, oh, okay. Well, we will see. Chris Walker, very much so. Yes, very much so. And Donna, I'll check again. Maybe I screwed up. Um, it's been known to happen occasionally. So, scroll up, scroll up, scroll down, scroll down. Da, 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 da.
There, copy and paste from the private chat.
Well, I'm trying to look for the name. Damn
Oh,
it. It's supposed to be right here. I mean, it's not like I. Oh, there we go. Um, Bada boom. There we go. Sorry. Something got in my eye. Uh, yeah, it's my show. I can say what I want. And it's almost midnight. I mean, it's not like I'm going to get a copyright strike on my vocabulary. Hopefully. Who can say? The universe is strange, and some of us are strangers still.
If Webster's descendants decide, well, we literally wrote the book on the English language.
That's the trouble with the English language. It's always following other languages down dark alleys and thumping them across the head and ruffling their pockets for loose vocabulary. Oh, yeah, Carl. Uh, it really doesn't matter. You could just leave the window playing in the background. And I believe I sent Ace an invite to, I don't know, the more the merrier. I mean, it's like California in the '60s. Just join in. Um, Heavens to Betsy.
all right. But yeah, Dan, I wanted to come on and thank you again, on your show for the great eulogy that you gave. And
Well, I'm glad you think it was great. I was very nervous, and then when I lost myself in the moment, it actually came from so deep in the heart that I got choked up as well. So,
well, you personally you were closer to the situation than any of us ever could have been.
oh, because of my wife being
Yes.
a British subject, yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
then Zach jumping in also helped. And I
yeah.
heard the beat, the little toot or the when somebody pops in.
Yes, Donna's here.
I
Hey,
was going to say, let's see how long we can make her wait in the in the back room.
Um,
what
you
up,
might
boys?
you
What
might
up?
want to play with dynamite, but I don't.
You know me. Hey, if I some of the stuff I say about my wife, do you think Donna scares me?
Yes,
Just a little, but
a little.
but yeah, I think I want to tap out because I got another doctor, and they can't. They they keep running these tests saying nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. Well, quit look. It's like that old saying. Mommy used to say, if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it.
Yep.
Well, I don't want no trouble. So yeah, y'all have fun. I'll talk to you later. Thanks again, Dan, and I will be. I'll see y'all Saturday night.
Alrighty.
Mm, see ya.
All right. Okay. Oh yeah, Donna, be careful ordering cigarettes or cigars. Don't get a box of license plates.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'd like to have that one explained to me, actually.
That
What
was
was he talking about?
some lady had ordered. He printed a news item from Tennessee. Some lady had ordered cigars, got the box, return address was from the cigar company, Thompson
Hmm.
Cigar, whom I have done business with before.
Yeah.
Label the packing slip inside was from Thompson Cigar. And so cigars, she had 100 Tennessee license plates.
Oh, I know
And
some folks from Tennessee that would be grateful for that care package. Let me tell you.
yeah, and the
Too many
she
speeding ticket. Too many speeding tickets on this plate. I'll just swap to one of the others. I got plenty.
she did get her cigars finally in the end. But they actually
This
somebody
is not the
actually
green room. Don't give me straight lines.
I'm trying to I'm trying to walk past it. But they showed up in at her door and took the license plates away from her. And nobody and said it's under investigation. It's under investigation. Well, the only thing the news company could find out was that the license plates and the cigars were both packed at the same shipping facility.
Uh huh.
And but still, I mean, how the hell do you mistake license plates for cigars when you've got that packing slip right there?
Well, it's
Oh, they're
really easy.
Tennesseans. Oh, never mind.
Well, I wasn't going to go Tennesseans, but they might be hiring individuals that don't give a flying fig. Trying to clean that up a little bit. Um, People that
Mm.
don't read, or people who purposefully are just like, let's screw with people.
Um,
Actually, option three is the most likely in my estimation. But then again, there's always the writer logic goes in, and I get this vision of some guy named Guido who's really pissed he didn't get his license plates.
well, and the big question is, if it was just as simple as a screw up, why why isn't anybody talking? Why aren't they just going? I mean, Thompson Cigar Company says, "Up, we don't know what happened. It had to happen at our shipping facility." But the people that the license plates came from, the people at the shipping facility, they're not even talking. They didn't explain to the lady, "Oh, we screwed up. Sorry. Here's your cigars." They didn't. They refused interview with the news company, and you got to go. If it was a simple mistake, and
Why
it's
isn't there a humorous story about a BMV getting, 100 boxes of cigars or how many ever, was fitting in the box?
yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
there's something else that goes by the name of Thompson from that area that would be slightly humorous if that arrived in the place of a box of cigars, but they would have to be
Shipped in a
like a
violent case.
footlocker. Yeah,
I said that'd be pretty hot, pretty heavy.
yeah,
But
really.
you know, my mystery writer mind goes, why are we not talking?
Hmm.
I mean,
Who is
yeah,
preventing people from making a humorous statement and turning this around?
Are they legitimate plates? Were they counterfeits?
yes, they were the legitimate plates, according to. I mean, they showed them on the air, and they showed pictures of the car that came and got it, and it had the little government plates, state government plates on it. Which
One,
I'm surprised they allowed that to go on air, but
hmm, one wonders who the original recipient could have been.
well, they weren't for the county that this lady lived in because
Ah, were they all labeled as from the same county, or were they random counties around Tennessee? That
they
comes to
didn't
mind.
say. They
They
didn't
didn't
say.
say. Okay.
All they said was that they could confirm that we're all still waiting on our license plates in this county.
Ah,
Yeah,
well, at least she got her cigars
that's
later.
the important thing, right?
Yeah, really.
Getting
But
your
then,
fix.
if I was a writer, I could make a really cool story out of.
If
But
Yeah,
wait, you are a writer.
I don't know. I haven't written anything for almost a year.
So,
I'm dry, boys. I'm dry.
I ain't touching that line with.
You need that 20-foot pole.
Well, no, I was suddenly reminded of a joke about Roman Polanski, the original 5 foot pole you wouldn't want to touch anybody with. But that's
Oh,
I,
no,
I had just watched a thing on the Manson family here the other night. I'm going, yeah, I remember that from real life,
so do I. And
from the far side of the continent. So,
he touched plenty of stuff he shouldn't have touched.
which he, yeah, Roman did
yeah,
definitely, and Charles did too,
Yeah,
actually.
well,
Um,
that's true.
yeah. Didn't Roman Polanski hide out of the country for a few years until they decided not to press charges?
I think it was damn near a decade or so.
Oh,
Um,
it was. I thought I was thinking it was almost 20 years.
yeah,
It was. Yeah.
yeah, he stayed in Europe for quite a long time.
As the kids would say today, it was a hot minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing you really would like to wait for anybody to forget about, as if that was going to happen.
Yeah,
And for the younger people in the audience, uh, Roman Polanski had an eye for, shall we say, the younger ladies.
Shall we say the very underage ladies?
I was about to get to that point. Yeah.
the Woody Allen
Uh,
effect.
I, I think Polanski had the copyright on it and managed to sue Woody Allen successfully
But
over
the
breach of.
younger crowd might understand Woody Allen.
Nah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's kind of the same generation.
Yeah, really.
Woody Allen did it. What? Almost 30 years later. 20 years later. It was, yeah, it was in the
20,
90s, wasn't it?
20,
Yeah.
twenty years
Something like that.
thereabouts. Yeah,
Because I remember
but
that being a big thing in the late 80s, early 90s.
yeah,
Because I was still in high school when the Woody Allen thing happened.
yeah.
And the
This,
language my mother used.
I can just
Well,
imagine.
and technically, it was his daughter.
Stepdaughter, but
Yeah.
that
Well,
doesn't
stepdaughter,
excuse
daughter.
anything.
Yeah,
Well, in
I
our
You,
said
family, we don't.
technically.
In my family,
yeah,
we don't use the word step, so in our family, it's just as bad.
mm,
Yeah, same
yeah,
here.
yep. Same here. The thing is, there's no excuse for anybody to mess with an underage girl or boy, as the case may be. Nowadays, that we've gotten
Or
enlightened and
other.
liberated, or other. Yes, thank you. Um, I'm still having trouble adjusting to the multi-value system.
Yeah,
I,
it's.
I I was raised on the the old standard, which no longer applies.
Just
Yeah.
pretend you're in Star Trek.
She was green. I thought she was 18. She looked right. No, no,
Mm.
that was a bad joke.
What do you mean 18 is not legal for your species?
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Oh,
Oh dear
I may
God! That
never live that one down.
as a
I was
fantasy
gonna
writer,
say.
part of my
Good
brain's going,
grief.
I didn't know she was under 100. Thinking about a human and an elf.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean she's not 10,000?
Oh, I'm going to hell.
You'll be in good company.
You can join the. You jump on the ship. We're going to Valhalla.
Yeah, really. On the slow boat. Ah, why do I get the feeling I'm washing dishes instead of steering? Ah,
But then when I
oh,
get there, they want to make sure that I am washing dishes instead of staring.
Carl, rails have no business here.
Whales. I don't see no stinking whale.
Where we're going, there are no rails.
Hey, we make Cryptid Crunch look organized.
And I've
Ooh.
been on that show.
Oh,
Love you,
yeah.
Keisha.
Yeah, me too. Not been on that show, but love you, Keisha. Yes, and Willow as well.
And well,
Um,
if she's watching this in repeat, and Johnny.
I kind of felt picked on that last show.
really? Why?
I wasn't sure if he was complimenting me or what.
I gotta go back and watch that. Um, I was dealing with other stuff and driving home when it was on.
Ouch for Cryptid Crunch. You know?
Excuse
They
me,
do
but
tend to go. "Mm,
yeah, they take a hard turn off the rails onto a dirt road and keep going. Um,
They
quite
need
often.
to clip that last few seconds of Back to the Future and replace the word road with rails. And then as soon as they start going off rails, they need to play that little clip. Where we're going, there are no rails.
There you
Or
go, Carl.
even better yet, go to
Hmm,
3, where they actually have the train taking off
the
and
train,
doing
yes.
that. That would be even better.
There you go, Carl. You have an assignment.
Oh, mm, Back to the Future? No, already been there. Oh Lord, so many movies, so many references, so little time.
I just noticed Carl's comment about Thompson Cigars from Pennsylvania. So how do you get Tennessee plates in a cigar shop in Pennsylvania? He's got some point.
Just lucky, I guess.
I mean, somebody had to have taken those cigars out
Well,
and put
just
the
because
plates
the cigar
in.
shop is in Pennsylvania doesn't mean necessarily its supplier is in Pennsylvania.
I'm surprised you're still up, old man.
Yeah, but it's my show.
I was talking to him, you know that.
Yeah, I know, but it was a good line. I couldn't pass it up. Ah,
Don't give him the straight line.
yes.
That's my job. And then sometimes I give them to him and he goes, no, no.
Hey, lady.
not, not even here. No. Yeah, there are times when I self edit even in the green room.
And I'm sitting here going, go on, Dan, do it. Say it.
Yeah, but I'd like to keep my friends. Seriously. When I self edit in the green room, it's something that is so bad that,
I'm not saying anything.
hey, it might make you giggle till you can't breathe anymore, but somebody's feelings are going to get hurt.
I
Um,
was going to say, and when has it ever stopped you guys from making me giggle till I can't breathe?
hmm, everybody got
Now,
to have a hobby.
next week's, if I'm able to show up, it won't be till later. The service actually starts at 6, so I don't know when I will get to a computer. Because I
Well,
think afterwards, I think we're going to the bar where he passed and having a few rounds and an Italian beef and sausage combo in his honor.
well, Carl
Understood?
and Donna are going to be elsewhere, and
That's this week that they're going to be elsewhere.
That's
oh,
this.
this week,
He's talking about next week.
Yeah,
next week. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I missed the
yeah,
timestamp.
yeah.
Uh,
If we manage to do one tomorrow, I will be able to attend. Um, not
Well,
sure how sober I will be, um, but
I didn't know sobriety was a required.
not in the green room.
I don't know if I'll be sober enough to figure out how to work my computer.
Okay, well, that
Okay, that's a clarification for you.
what you do is you set that up first, then you get drunk and come in.
Yeah.
But someone else is probably going to have to set up the room.
The thing is, I've been doing IT so long, I could probably do it drunk. I can probably do it half asleep.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Yep.
And
Um,
I don't know if we'll be here, if we'll be on Soup at the Clock or Last Man Standing Saturday night, because we'll be just getting in
mm,
sometime from that tune. It's
I'll
not that
send
far drive, but
I'll send y'all a link anyway. It doesn't matter. I mean, seriously, if you're busy, you're busy. If you're tired, you're tired. That's perfectly fine.
So is the Mattoon thing only a day and a half gig or?
it starts at 5 tomorrow night, 5 till 9, and they've got some stuff going. And it's 10 or 11 on Saturday, and I don't till 5, I think. But it's in a mall, so there'll be a lot of passerbys as well as people who's come to the con. Great pub there
Mm,
where we can get food, so we don't have to go out. Yeah, it's not. It'll be nice. I'll be able to. I'm hoping that the lady who made my hat will be there so that I can show her how wonderful it looks in person.
mm.
But it's a real cool show. I was interviewed by a paranormal group about my ancestor who lives with me and how I learned to talk with him via dowsing rods. And
Continue.
I'm
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 interested.
listening.
Yeah.
what? Um.
If you're not going to spoil their interview,
Oh shit! That was before COVID.
oh,
Um. All my life, when we'd hear little noises in the house when I was living at home that could not be explained, my mom and I would look at each other and go, "Oh, that's George." And there have been times when I'd like be going in one direction and getting and just get this feeling
hmm
and go in another direction. Well, after Carl and I got married, he was at work. I was in the master bathroom. Now, it was on one end of the mobile home, double wide. One door in, you had to pass in front of the door to the bathroom to get into go into the basement or the bedroom, and you know you could not get back out without being seen. I'm standing at there, look in the mirror, and I think I see Carl go by into the bedroom in the middle of the day. And I turn around and I look, and there's nobody in the bedroom. And like I say, there's no way he could have gotten out. And I'm like, okay, well, we have a historic theater in town called the Fisher. Dick Van Dyke, Jerry Van Dyke, Gene Hackman all have had performed there in their day, and they were restoring it. And in order to fundraise, they had paranormal groups come in. And
that's no return.
I was down there, and this one group's really really nice guys, and we were on the floor where uh, unmarried ladies had lived. They were women who worked as secretaries, etc. And supposedly a lady had committed suicide in the communal bathrooms, communal showers. So our group was standing there, and the guy from the paranormal group was explaining what they felt. And he turns to me and he says, "You know how to use dowsing rods?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm an old farm girl. I've even found water." And he says, "Here, now you cannot manipulate these dowsing rods because they put them in the handle off of jumping rope. And you can turn them all you want. There's no way you can control them." So I ask a question, no answer. And I ask another question, and they open wide, which means no. And all of a sudden, this feeling comes over me, and I said, "Are you the ghost that I called George?" "Yes." "Okay, that's cool." And I look at this guy, and he looks at me, and he says, "Go for it." And so, I ask a few more questions, and I'm getting yes answers. Are you related to me? Yes. Finally, I'm like, "This has been nice, but these people didn't come here to see you. Um, may I talk to somebody else?" And they opened one and said no. And I'm like, okay. So I hand them to another lady. And I said, you give it a try. And she'd ask a question, and they both of them would and they point at me. And the guy would pull them back in front of her, and she'd ask another question, and they'd turn around and point at me again. And Bob says, "Well, I guess you're our spokesperson." So I'm like, okay. I took him back and I said, "All right, if I can't talk to somebody else besides you, will you answer questions for the whoever else is here? And they crossed and said yes. So, we were there like 15, 20 minutes. It was a really cool session. So when I got home, I made my own. And I took a wire hanger and cut out my rods, and then I put them in jump rope. And I found out he is my ancestor. I expected him to be either my Norse or Celtic because that's what I have most in me. He's my Italian ancestor. And I'm like, oh, then I should call you like Georgino or George is right. And I get, no. It's okay, I call you George. And after my mother died, I'm like, okay, is my mom with you? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, is she with dad? And he's like, yes. And my brother Dale was with them. And I said, well, that's nice. That's comforting. But it's funny that he's my blood relative, but he's keeping track of my adopted parents and family who's already passed. So that's really about it. But I've seen him several times. The way my office was set up, I can see most of outside, but I can't see the corner where the hall makes a little dog leg to come back into my room. I've seen who I thought was Carl walk across there, and I'm like, okay, Carl's coming in. Nobody there. And I'm not the only person who's seen him. My friends Julie and Mike were over for the weekend, and this is when Carl was still working, and she was coming upstairs for some reason, and she gets up and she says, "Oh, Carl come home early." And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "Yeah, I just saw him go into the library." And I'm like, "No, you just saw George. Carl's still at work. For some reason, when he manifests as Carl, and probably to not startle whoever he shows himself to, because they say they sometimes take on the affectation of something that's comforting to you.
Hmm.
And when we had a housemate, I would hear they'd both be gone, and I would hear in Carl's voice, I would hear somebody say Donna, or I would hear Ron's voice say Carly, which is what he called me. And it's funny how that would happen.
So, with all due respect to our dear friend Stephanie, you have just proved that you are a small medium at large.
I'm not that small. I don't know. Maybe just as sensitive, but you know, I scared my first fiance one time when I told him about my grandpa talking to me because I was sick. And of course, I had 104 fever at the time. It could have been a hallucination, but I convinced him that my grandfather had been there talking to me. And he goes to talk to my mother, and he says, "I'd like to meet your father. He sounds nice, and it's nice that he was in there comforting Donna." And my mom looked at him and says, "My father's been dead since she was 8 years old, and I know that I've seen him at least 3 times since then." at times when I needed someone.
My biological grandfather on my mother's side passed away long before I was born. Story that my mom always used to tell about my grandpa Ezra is he had a sister who had a husband who was very abusive. And the only thing that basically kept her husband at bay was the fear of Ezra beating the ever loving hell out of her. And the day that my grandfather passed away, nobody wanted to tell my great aunt because they were just afraid that she would be afraid and stuff like that. So they stopped in, and she was actually in the hospital at the time for something. I don't remember what. But they go in and they start to talk to her, and they're like, "We've got news about Ez." And she looked at him. And she's like, "He's dead." He told me. He stopped in here, and we talked, and he told me I'll be safe, and then faded away. So it's I'm a firm believer in at least that piece of the paranormal.
Well, I admit that I have occasionally had long mental discussions with my deceased relatives, and one or two of them were much more coherent in my mind than they were when they were alive. That that particular lady was before the term special needs was ever coined. She
Mm.
fitted her entire life. But I won't say that I have had any actual paranormal experiences in that direction. Other directions may have, but how would I know? Um, there have been times when something both dramatic and traumatic happened that I should not have been able to walk away from,
Mhm.
and I did.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure
More than the
somebody
clothes that I want to
was.
count.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure somebody was with me the time I wrecked my Oldsmobile because I went about 100 foot down a ditch, took out 3 or 4 fence posts, just small fence posts, but still took them out, and landed 2 car lengths into a field and didn't get a scratch. Walked away, and the car didn't even have a scratch on it either.
Mm.
But all I can remember from it happening was just like the Star Wars scene when they jump into hyperspace and they got those stars. That's all I saw.
Everything blurred and then it was over.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Um, as I said, there are several instances in my life that I should not have walked away from, but I did. Um, I I don't want to say that I was lucky, uh, because if I'd been lucky, I wouldn't have been in the situation to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But caused me to wonder about multiple timeline theory. Did something happen elsewhere and I walked away here?
Mm-hmm.
Time after time after time. And there's one of my favorite writers was um, that was one of the cornerstones of his multiple timeline stories was that in moments of extreme stress, the you that is you, the core personality, might have occasion to detach from the emergency and go sideways to another timeline, another reality, another dimension where that emergency was less traumatic and continue from that point.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the ultimate save continue
Yeah.
in a video game.
Yeah.
Um,
Slightly
no,
reminiscent of Pierce Anthony and his Apprentice Adept series. While you both
was
exist in those two time frames, you can't pass. But as soon as you're missing from one,
you're on the other one with,
Yeah.
but it was H. Beam Piper who had a unique understanding of multiple time frames and wrote some fascinating stories. Was really played fast and loose with some of those. Probably my experiences, for want of a better word, um, helped me establish my interest in the fiction that goes along naturally with sideways and time travel. Uh, Andrew Norton did some really nice books about that. Keith Laumer did some really nice books about that. Um, Piper did some really nice books about that, and the examples keep going. Um, just everything's fine until it isn't, and then you're elsewhere, and things are just somewhat, slightly, almost imperceptibly different than they were before, but the emergency is not quite so dramatic as it originally seemed. And I can't say. I really can't say. Is this reality or is it just sort of rationalizing situations that I walked away from that I shouldn't have? I don't know. I'd rather not like to think that my life has been a continuation of going from oh shit I died to oh shit I'm still alive over and over and over and over and over again since I was a child. But looking back at my memories, that would be a perfectly valid, if really strange explanation of some of the things that I have gone through. But, if it doesn't happen to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
then it's obviously just my mind trying to cope with stuff got really intense and then it was no longer that intense and here I am. You be the judge. I don't know. Um,
The
all I
human
know
mind
is
is programmed to look for patterns.
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Because we were
And,
not always the apex predator of the planet. So that's why it's we can look into the trees and see the branches and the leaves, um, and the pattern they make, and we can go, that's a person's face. Or we can look at a cloud and go, you know, that's a dragon, slapping a griffin, and stuff like
or
that. So we're really good at that pattern recognition.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man, and it evolved to where you could look at the leaves and branches in a tree and go, "There's a snake. I'm going to move to another branch."
Yeah.
And it's also gotten to the point where we look at that in situations around us as well, where we go, okay, usually when this happens and this happens, I want to be over there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's stuff that's so subconscious that our brains will fill in the rest,
Mm-hmm.
especially for storytellers, any creative type.
Oh yes,
It's
yes.
we are more prone to this than any others. Now, does that discount any of the possibly paranormal things that exist out there? Oh hell no.
No.
But it does make it easy for those who don't want to believe to discount by going, oh, it's your overactive imagination because you think in these fantasy realms. Those are the patterns that your brain is automatically going
I believe in, yet sometimes I look at some of the photographs that have been taken to go, oh, see, there's a face in the mirror, there's a face in the window, and I'm like, yeah, that's the same thing that you were talking about. You're seeing a I can see where you would think it would be a face, but I don't think that was a real face. And yet I still believe in the paranormal. I would love to go on a ghost hunt, but between my tinnitus and my audio processing disorder, I would be of no help because I wouldn't hear things well enough to go, oh, there's a conversation going on over there. And after the incident at the Fisher where George wouldn't let me talk to the other ghosts, I'm going, if I went on, if I spent, and it costs like 250 to go on one of these tours these days. If I spent money like that and then George doesn't let me hear the other ghost that's there, that's a lot. That's a waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too much Scottish in my blood. I don't like to waste money. So I'm just happy with my little personal ancestor ghost.
I want to believe, but until I can be given proof, I'm
Hmm.
always going to be somewhat skeptical. Um,
Understood.
I really want werewolves to exist. I really, really, really do. I, I believe in the probability. Sorry, I believe in the possibility, not the probability.
Mm.
Hmm. Well, it's also funny. I've never directly spoken to my mom after she's passed, but I met my best friend uh, because of my mom. She was one of the CNAs that took care of her in the home, and we got really close while she was there until she got married and pregnant and had to quit her job. But after mom died, we connected back again, and one day she said to me, let's let's have lunch. And I'm like, sure, that's fine. And she's like, I don't know how to say this to you, but your mom told me that I needed to talk to you and we needed to be friends. And I'm like, okay. And just, accepted that. And she says, you believe me, don't you? And I said, I sure do, because my mom's pushy that way. And every time, every time it comes about time to get together, my mom comes to her in her dreams, like, yeah, it's time you need to go see Donna again. And I'm like, yeah, people are going to say that's your imagination, that's your wish that you want to see her again, you want to talk to her again. And so you dream about him. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
She believes my mom's pushing her. I mean, my mom seems to visit her every time we get together, just before we get together. Like she's saying, you know, good for you or something. And I'm like, maybe I should be jealous that my mom doesn't come talk to me, but I'm not. I'm glad that my mom brought April into my life. She's become my best friend. And it's, I she's if I called her at 1 o'clock in the morning and said I need you here, she will be here. And you don't have a lot of people in your life that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows that if she called me at 1 o'clock in the morning and said I need you, I would be there. I have do not disturb on my phone, but she's one of the people who can get through in spite of that, because you can allow certain people to come through.
Your favorites, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the problem with some of these things being my imagination making up stories is that I know my imagination and the stories that I make up. Usually the stories are more believable. It's the really weird shit that I can't believe or anybody else can't believe that I'm going, okay. Either physics is weird or metaphysics is weird or I'm weird or all of the above. And I could use that in a story, but nobody believe it because it's just too damn weird.
Yeah, I love it when things happen and go. If I put that in a story, I'd get called on it.
Hey, um, oh Lord, the Sherlock Holmes story. You remember that one?
Hmm.
Have to publish it as fiction because nobody'd believe it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was so meta because it was fiction. I am not Dr. Watson. I did not write.
you got his voice though.
Oh well, thank you, thank you. That I did months of research trying to make sure that I did get the voice correct. I mean, that was one of the things that I really, really worked on was trying to make it sound as Conan Doyle as I possibly could,
Hmm.
even
And
though there were lots of things that would not have occurred to Conan Doyle to put into a story. But
and Carl, it's your own fault that we got together. If you hadn't hit on my best friend that night, my other best friend, we might still not have met.
Carl, back off. You're not going to win this one. Just accept it and be grateful.
No, it's not really that often that we have different beliefs in something.
Well, yeah,
But this is one area that we have agreed to disagree.
I can see that. I can see that quite well. Um,
Well, thank you. I'm glad I make your life interesting.
Growing up,
Somebody's got to do it.
we had an interesting occurrence happening in the first house that we lived in. And it has actually followed me to every home I've lived in. When I was very little, whenever I was sick, my mom would leave the door open so that she could hear me yell because I was laying in bed. So she can come up, bring me more chicken soup or, beverage or what have you. What would happen is on one side of the door frame, I'd see like a white pair of gloves do this. Then I'd see a little bit of a blur type thing, and then I'd see a major blur. As the major blur goes past, the gloves disappeared from the door frame, and it would shoot across the door. And then from the opposite side, they'd pop on the other side, and it would keep doing that. Okay, it's after midnight dance time, so I'll actually use this word. Scared the ever loving fuck out of me for years. As I got older, I kind of realized what it is. It's something playing peekaboo with me to make the young child feel safer. Um, and I,
Amused, yeah.
and I ended up, giving the entity a name, Puck. I call him my house kobold because it's very reminiscent of Germanic kobolds from Germanic mythology.
Hmm.
Kind of a house spirit, doesn't appear very big, kind of protective, mischievous. If you piss it off, it's not a good day. Um,
Sounds like
and
my sister.
and Puck has followed me from house to house to house. So it's not attached to my family. He's followed
That's
me
you.
wherever I went.
Hmm.
Um, my middle daughter, well, technically, I guess at this point in time, my only daughter, because I I can literally say I've got one of each, male, female, none of the above. Um, but my daughter, my middle child, her and her friends would play with witchcraft and stuff like that and trying to summon things. And they would always run afoul of Puck. Because whenever they started doing that, weird shit started happening around them. And I believe in demons. I believe in demonic entities. I believe in negative energy and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I've always done is I've always blessed my household. Um, Using some of the newer rites, some of the older rites, um, going across traditions. Um, I, I'm very reminiscent of Benny from the Mummy. Um, okay, the Jewish prayer doesn't work. Let's try this one.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's whenever they're up to something stupid, my daddy's sense starts tingling, and Puck usually
Mm.
scared the ever loving hell out of them, and they'd immediately cut it off. As soon as they're trying to bring anything into the house that isn't kosher, Puck has always been there as kind of my metaphysical guard dog.
Yeah, the trouble with kids trying to summon something because they read something in a book is,
Sometimes they get through.
Hmm.
well, no, no, they don't bother to look up how to banish it.
Right.
Hmm.
It's like reading stereo instructions.
Uh huh.
Oh, we've got sound coming out. We're not worried about the grounding and shorting out or anything else. So I am a firm believer in that aspect of the paranormal, and I've dealt with way too much on that side to ever be a non-believer. Um, in that essence, I don't have faith in it. I have knowledge in it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just children either. There are adults who dabble and open a portal and then don't bother to close it, and then you can't figure out why they're being bedeviled because the wrong thing came through.
Tonight, She-Hulk. Yes. Sorry, that reference just slipped through. Um, yeah. There, there are many, many, many instances that have been recorded of kids kind of invoking something that they didn't have any way of getting rid of, any kind of way of banishing when it, and some of these things are classic stories, or I mean really classic. They go back 1600s or hell, probably the 900s.
Mm-hmm.
But and they become folklore, um, verging on myth, but not quite because there's not that much detail. Um, and one thing about folklore is it can survive even without word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of gravitates towards the collective subconscious. People know things that they weren't consciously told, just kind of were part of the background of the culture. Um,
There's a word for that.
fucking spooky is what it is.
Yeah, I can't think of it. There's a word for that.
it,
And I can't think of it. And if Carl's awake, can he think of it?
well, and then there is a genre of fiction that has adults doing the same thing with
Mm-hmm.
horrifying results, and that's a very serious subset of the horror genre, and that goes back even further than H.P. Lovecraft, back to the Brothers Grimm, probably. Uh, and have you ever seriously sat back and read some of the original Grimm's fairy tales? I mean, not the sanitized ones that we get fed
The
in
real ones,
kindergarten,
yeah.
the real ones back
Those
that haven't been cleaned up.
those are horrific.
They can
Um,
be,
No,
yes.
they're all cautionary tales. They're meant um,
that's not the
to
word
go
I was
back to
thinking of.
the first cryptid crunch that I managed to catch was, a lot of those older tales were cautionary tales to scare young children. They were the original boogeymen, and then they created those original background ideas in children that you don't stray, you don't misbehave, you don't talk back, or Krampus is going to come get you, or you don't talk to strangers or you might get eaten. You know, um,
Yeah, you don't walk up to the gingerbread house in the woods and go knock, knock, knock.
Zeitgeist is what I was thinking too, Carl.
Ah, yes. Yeah, zeitgeist is a good word. That covers a huge number of well, not a huge number, but a huge lot of territory in concepts. But it's like you said, collective subconscious, collective subconscious, collective unconscious. I've heard both terms. Um, this is not a salad bar, but do pick and choose whichever is most comfortable. Um,
I was thinking more like genetic memory, or
oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I can't remember now the word for it, but there's a special word for it that I used to know. I don't know anymore, but it's more like a genetic memory
yeah. But it goes way, way back till
forever.
yeah, back when we were develop developing language, basically.
Hmm.
Um,
Genetic memory seems pretty dead on, and
well,
apparently that is an actual term.
mm, there are things that we've turned into fears that have names,
Yeah.
but they didn't always have names. They were just a general thing. And now it's the bogeyman, it's Slender Man, it's uh, gray aliens. If you want to even move further towards the present, um,
The creepy killer clowns.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. Thank you, thank you.
And
That
then
was
you've
a
got
perfect.
dumbasses out there actually playing into that and scaring the hell out of people by actually doing that shit too.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And some of those pranksters, I'm really surprised have not gotten shot. Um, Believe me, I've lived in places where you walk around in a clown suit, tapping on people's windows, going "boo." You gonna wind up with some buckshot in your butt,
And you deserve it.
and and that's getting off lightly. You do not want to mess around the homes of people who have tractors and backhoes
If you're
and
messing around in the place where the roads don't go,
yeah,
you don't play.
it really. If all you got is dirt roads, you tread lightly.
And listen for the banjos.
Mm, been there. Used to go camping there actually. Tallulah Gorge. Uh,
Yeah, and and you could call it instinct, I guess, but yeah, there's just something that you just know, and you have no reason for knowing.
yeah, it's not within your wheelhouse. It's not within your experiences, but
Hmm.
it's there, and it's like genetic memory. It's an inheritance you didn't know that you had. Um, th- they're generic things like fear of the dark, fear of snakes, fear of spiders. They're most likely was not a conscious instance that prompted that. You just learned it from other people's experience, even if you don't remember any actual words describing it. It just got passed along from generation to generation to generation. And that's not. the same thing as a collective unconscious or uh, subconscious memory or collective subconscious memory. Um, but it functions in a parallel way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those parallels get pretty close for parallels because they're not supposed to meet. But if you've ever studied perspective, parallel lines do meet at the horizon. And when you get to the horizon, either those parallel lines are still separated or they actually meet. Just depends on your worldview, your experiences, your
True.
upbringing, what you've been told as a child, what you've learned, and things that you didn't know you learned but still overheard, and attitudes that aren't actually verbally communicated. Just they're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually something genetic, but it acts like it should be. Um, and probably that's somewhere in our evolution, way back when we were still living in trees as little smart monkeys, or whatever you want to, however you want to rationalize the instance of it is. There was a danger signal. Didn't know what it meant, but you knew it meant danger, and a lot of people put that down to fear of fear of snakes, fear of spiders, fear of rats, fear of whatever, whatever the threat happened to be for that environment, and then it got passed down even before we invented language. There was the experience of the elders that was communicated even without words.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm going way back here, but this, as writers, this is the kind of thing that we actually work with. This is
Right.
one of the building blocks that we've got. We we know these things even if we don't know how we know it.
And for
Uh,
those of us who dip in the horror genre, it's the place that we like to try to dwell because that's what we need to replicate and resonate in our stories to get them to scare the bejesus out of the people who are wanting to be scared, which is why they're reading a horror story.
hmm And if we get it right, it's a damn good story.
Yep. That's for sure.
If we get it wrong, our children grow up to be horribly neurotic.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
If you get it right, sometimes the children grow up to be horrible and neurotic as well.
And good storytellers too. Ah,
Look at Stephen King and Joe Hill.
yeah, definitely. There's some genetics at work there, and there's also the environmental being exposed to the stories, either through reading or
Oh, pardon me.
from overhearing them or whatever, and that can pass back through even before the written word, uh, when everything was um, told from generation to generation, even back around the campfire before. houses before, while we were still, uh, what is the word? What is the word? Not territorial, but mobile, migratory. Uh, there are things that resonate within human imagination that are old beyond measure. And when
Mm-hmm.
you can tap into that, you can tell some really good stories. But the patterns of the stories were there. You heard them, you were told them, you you were told to go to sleep at night and told a story that made you pull the bed covers up over your head.
Right. Which,
We're
you know,
getting really erudite here.
I don't know.
I sound like I've actually got an education. Like, yeah, really. Sorry, folks. I'm just an old farm boy. Um,
Just because you're an old farm boy doesn't mean you don't have an education. We're always learning from the world around us. The moment we stop learning is the moment we start dying. And
mm,
yeah, this is coming from an adult educator. I teach people how to use computers and everything. So I have to tap into all that. And we are always learning, we're always gathering new things. And the number of things that you can learn from a child. One of my favorite little tidbits out there, and I saw someone do a YouTube video on it recently, and I had to laugh, is the differences you get between an engineer answering a question and a 5 year old answering a question. You know, how do you get an elephant into, a refrigerator? So an engineer immediately just starts asking a billion questions. How big is the refrigerator? How big is the elephant? Are we talking a living elephant? Are we talking a little statue? What's going on here? Where a 5 year old just goes, you open the door, you put the elephant in, you close the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Sometimes you have to squeeze really
yeah.
hard.
And then, the next question is, okay, how do you get the giraffe in the, uh, the refrigerator? And then the engineers go, okay, you open the door, you put the giraffe in, close the door. Like, no, you open the door, you take the elephant out, you put the giraffe in, close the door. You know, all the animals in the forest are at a party. Who's missing? Engineer has no idea, and kid goes, the giraffe, it's still in the refrigerator. You come to a river that is, you know, um, occupied by, or yeah, yeah, that is usually living with hundreds of man-eating crocodiles. How do you get across? You just swim across. All the crocodiles are at the party in the jungle. And it's just the simplistic logic you can get.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on the point of view. You can have the most backwoods hilljack, countrified person that makes Gomer Pyle sound like an intellectual giant, and submit a problem to them that an engineer is sitting there and they're overthinking and they're over engineering the problem, and that other person just comes up and goes, "Your filter's dirty." What? Your filter's dirty. It's right there. It's clogged. Clean out that one clog and it's humming.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's they're taking that different look, that different view. So it's I have to laugh. I do not hold a college degree, but I do IT for a law firm. If I want to become a manager or anything like that, I do have to go out and get my degree. I don't really feel like dealing with all that bullshit. I'm happy being in the trenches. I'm happy educating. Even if they knock me back down to doing help desk, I wouldn't mind doing that. I love help desk. I love helping people. And part of help desk is education as well. I mean, you have to tell them how to do something if you are not physically there.
You have to be able to imagine you were there and put yourself in their shoes and relate to their level of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like I joined the local literacy group to help teach people to read. I was very effective by a commercial where this person who worked in the kitchen at the U of I could not read, could not tell the difference between salt and flour by reading. But she had taught herself how to do it. And having read from the age of 3 or 4, my mind was blown.
Hmm.
Here's an adult who can't read simple words. And so I joined the literacy group, which is situated at the local college. And they're like, we need you to teach English. Okay, I can do that. I'm a grammar Nazi. I am not a teacher.
Apparently, adult illiteracy, at least in the state of Indiana, can get you disability.
I don't know about over here. I do know that on certain misdemeanors, that part of your probation is if you do not have a college, high school diploma, you have to go get your GED. I thought, oh, well, this is cool. And they have to write a term paper and everything. They do not teach English or grammar to a person getting a GED. Yeah, but they expect them to write a term paper. I was trying to teach this person that English was his second language. He could barely read in his first language. So, and he did not know the concept of present past, just present and past. We came up to a word and he's like, I don't know this word. And I'm like, well, it's the past tense of give. And he looked at me and was like, what do you mean? Past tense. And I said, you give today, but you what yesterday?
Not Carl.
Good night,
And he,
Carl.
night, Carl. And he had no concept. And I said, well, how would you say it in Spanish? And he told me, and I'm like, okay. Do you not know how to translate that into English? And he thought about it, and he's like, gived? I'm like, okay,
That's right.
nice try. Bad example.
Structurally, that is all right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I told him. I said, normally that would be right. In
To
English,
to
we do have,
translate it to English, there's a special word that we probably stole from somebody French.
yeah. Then I'm like, there are some words in English that change in the past tense. Well, what is past tense? Past tense is what you did yesterday. You do something today, but you did it yesterday. And that's one of the words in English that change. do and did, not do and dude.
Dude.
And I had to teach myself how to teach English to somebody, even somebody who had a concept of past, present, and future. Fortunately, they had a book that they gave me. They It was the teacher's edition, so it had the answers in back, and I typed out all that book so that I had worksheets for them to work on.
Hmm.
But yeah, and I came up with some pretty nifty mnemonics, like how to tell the difference between comparatives and superlatives. Um, how and something like good, better, best. Good is item. One item is good. You have two items if one is better. Oh, by the way, at the end, there's two letters that you add, ER. You have at least three items for best. And then the last three letters are changed too, EST. I said it works for anything. Pretty, prettier, prettiest. And in following this, what I thought was a very simple thing, a lot of people got it. And nobody else, none of the other teachers understood this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so simple to me. And I had a whole workbook of what I thought were simple mnemonics to remember these things that actually helped people, but the teachers did not get it. But I was not allowed to teach the people going for the GED. I was not allowed to teach them English or grammar. I was only to help them learn how to read. And I'm like, how are they going to write this term paper? And the literacy side had a scholarship where we would pick out people who wrote term papers, and we would give, well, scholarship. It was like $200 a semester, which is enough for a community college.
Especially back in the day.
Yeah, and we had this one teacher for the GED turn in a term paper for this girl, and she says this one's one of your better ones. She's going to win the prize. And I'm looking at this thing going, a fifth grader could write a better term paper than this, and you are praising her for it.
Well, first you have to understand that the concept of a term paper, and then you have to understand teachers' motivation is to get students out of their classroom into somebody else's classroom.
Yeah, I guess I just being an English major and a writer, and I mean, even in grade school, I would be correcting people's grammar because it came naturally to me all
You
my life.
also might not know where the person started from, too.
This is true.
So,
Mm-hmm.
that might be,
But I,
a collegiate jump for them to get to that point. Um,
Yeah, if
if they
you
were
don't
completely
know
illiterate.
how much someone else has learned, you really have difficulty not wasting their time by trying to figure out where
well, my
the
biggest
limits
problem
start.
wasn't with the girl who wrote the term paper, because Yeah, like you say, I could see where she was coming from. My biggest problem was with the teacher who thought this was a term paper good enough to win a scholarship.
Would have had to been one hell of a term paper.
Yeah,
They might also not have a high uh, regard for the individuals in the program either. They might think that
girl.
everyone that's in the program, but that
yeah,
that falls into one of those privilege arguments. It's privilege is an interesting thing.
Yeah,
You can
true.
never see your own, but you can always see somebody else's until it's pointed out to you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or you can see how to equalize things away from yours and more closely align with theirs if you're
that's
a good
true.
teacher.
I was always knocking heads with those people, though. I spent a couple years on the board too, and at one meeting, this lady brings up that we need to buy um, library cards for some of the students who can't afford it, who live outside the city. And at that time, the library cards were like $70 a piece, which to me was horrendous.
I've never heard of that kind of price for a library card. Usually it's like
If you live
five
out,
bucks at most.
if you live outside the city of Danville, yeah, it's $70.
No, no, that's outrageous. That's uncalled for.
Well,
That's price gouging.
that's how I felt about it, and I was like, no, why are we buying this guy a library card? Well, his tutors, his he's been using his tutor's library card. She's been letting him take out books, and he's been taking home two books a week and bringing them back and reading them. And he's doing very good. And I think we need to get him his own library card. And I'm like, no.
Not at the cost of 2 weeks' food.
Well, that too. I said, how do we know he's reading those books? Is she quizzing him on them? And she's like, well, no, but he takes them home and he brings them back. And how do we know he's actually reading these, that he's not just taking these books home to impress his tutor? And they had no answer. And finally, and of course, I was dressed. I mean, it was a business meeting. I was dressed in a business outfit. And this lady goes, well, you want to deny him the same privileges that you have. Uh, don't you think that he should be able to do what you did? And I'm like, yeah, he could do what I did. I drove 10 miles from Rossville into Danville to sit in the library and read the books I needed to read. I didn't have the money for a card. I didn't have a gullible person like you to buy me a library card. And she just kind of looked at me and like, oh, because then she realized that I was not the privileged person she took because I was so nicely dressed. And so the head of the guys says, well, let's take a vote on it. And everybody else voted with me to not get that card. They agreed with me that he could just get on the bus and come into town if he needed to go to the library that badly. So yeah, and it's not that I wanted to deny him access to it, but I just didn't think we needed to give him a free ride unless he proved that he was actually reading those books. Because hey, you can take books out and bring them back and well, look, oh, I've done this many books this week and not read a single line.
You can take them home and somebody else could read them. Somebody else can read
Yeah,
them to you. Although if someone else read them to you, at least then you're still consuming the information within.
exactly right. We
But
had no evidence of any of that.
yeah, and I agree. If it's that that much for that, I mean,
That's outrageous.
there
And that
has to be
was,
some proof. I agree 100% that there's certain things that okay, yes, technically I've got the right to do X, Y, Z, but I've worked to get there, and I'm not saying that people who can't work to get there can't have it, but they have to prove to me that they're going to use the resource that's being handed out to them.
mm-hmm,
Because if they're not going to use the resource that's being handed out to them, that can be given to someone else who will.
exactly.
Um, so that's where I swing back to the conservative side.
Yeah.
I try to be a centrist.
And my other point was if he read so well that he was reading these two books in a week, why did he need a reading tutor?
What were the books that he was checking out too? I mean, were they golden books or were they the Iliad?
You know, it was interesting. She didn't have any of that information. And I'm like, you didn't really do your research, did you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hell. Um, you know, Growing up, my public library had Dungeons and Dragons books. It had all sorts of gaming resources and stuff like that. Granted, it's still reading on a certain level, but I mean, if he's just checking those out, or they had graphic novels and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, depends on what they're checking
Mm-hmm.
out as well. And I mean, did he want his own library card? Or were they just like, oh, he's doing this. Let's go ahead and.
Well, she didn't have that answer either. No, she had just decided that we of privilege needed to give this guy reward him for taking home books by giving him his own library card. And I'm like, I see no evidence as to why he needs his library card. And
And that's exactly where the privilege, you know, where privilege sticks in my craw.
yeah,
Um, I have a lot of people trying to throw white male privilege at me. I'm like, the thing is with white male privilege, there's one word they keep omitting: handsome.
mm-hmm.
6'4", at my biggest, 500 pounds. Most people didn't bother giving me a second glance. I was either the extremely smart guy that was going to bust the curves that they were going to hate because I am fat and have no friends, so therefore I'm studying all the time, or I was the big dumb,
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is I lie somewhere in between.
Excuse me a minute. Dan. Oh, Dan. Dan, sweetie.
Yes, baby.
Oh, Dan.
Oh, darling.
I think maybe we should end the show.
Yep, I do have to go to work in the morning, and I am obviously fading out.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to close it out, but
Well, I mean, we only have 15 minutes to
we
the
only
end
have
of it
15
anyway.
minutes. But mm, uh,
Yeah.
We might have
we
tomorrow,
have
and we
touched on
probably have Saturday.
architect. We have touched on archetypal storytelling here without meaning to, without being directed to, which is a very important thing. And it's one of those things that get you noticed if you do your term papers on it and get it right. But
Mm-hmm.
there are ways to tap into the collective unconscious to render something that is common to all experience, all human experience, and kind of give it a little nudge into the fictional areas that we work in. At
Evocative and provocative.
oh, and this is one of the things where if you know you're doing it, or even if you don't know that you're doing it, but you know how to do it, even if you don't know that you're doing it, you can turn out some really, really good stuff. Um, I do believe that if you look closely at things like uh, King Arthur, Camelot, um, damn, I wish there was some stuff really actually historically connected to Stonehenge because there would be some good stuff in there. Oh, the things that you can pluck from thin air with this as a basis, a background, a toolbox to pull from
Mm-hmm.
can be really effective, and especially if you're aware that you're pulling from that toolbox. But then again, it has happened so many times in the past that you did not even know a toolbox existed, but you were still reaching in there for a wrench or two. And that 10 millimeter socket is still hard to find, but you
Yeah.
turn out these things that become legendary.
One of the
Uh,
phrases I despise among beyond anything else is thinking outside the box. I don't think outside the box. I just have a different box of tools or toys, depending who I'm talking to. If I'm
hmm
in my
Mm-hmm.
more professional setting, I usually go with tools, unless it's other techs, and then I say toys because let's face it, as techs, we prefer toys over tools.
Well, if
True.
you go
Uh,
back far enough, people didn't even know there was a box.
yeah, but it's I've got different experiences, I've got different points of views, and that's what I bring to the table. And that's the beautiful thing about everyone is we can all bring something to the table if you let us, and if they want to come to the table.
Right.
So it's the um, you can send a kid to school, but you can't make them think. The derivative of you can you
Lead a
know
horse to water.
water, but can't make them drink. Yeah.
hmm
And I'm sorry if I tapped my microphone. I
Don't
was
worry.
getting expressive and talking with my hands, and my microphone just happened to be in the way. Um, but at least I didn't send it flying like Nick. Um,
True.
Yeah, but he gets so expressive.
yes,
There's got to be a word for that kind of. You know,
flamboyant.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
no.
okay, flamboyant without the snap. But
That one's been.
I do have a nephew who is flamboyant with the snap. So,
Yeah.
and he's very good at it. And God bless him. He's very fun to watch in theatrical productions. Um, but yeah, it's well, okay. Look at Nick's teaching style. Nick's teaching
Mhm.
style. He's usually holding a large pointy object and showing people through you know actual expression and movement. So it makes sense that everything he does is expressive and talking big with his hands. Um, Nick,
A
if you're
lot of
watching
people
this
would
on the
call
replay,
that
I love you, brother.
theatrical.
True.
Sorry to derail you.
True. Say
Quick warning,
goodnight,
there
Gracie.
are no rails.
We don't need those stinking rails. Um, you woke me up for this. Uh,
All right, I need to find that image, and I need to go play in GIMP or Photoshop,
Hmm.
oh Lord.
and then send a
Sorry,
copy of that
sorry,
to.
sorry. I nodded off. It's been a long, hard day, and there's been very emotionally draining in places.
Yes.
Um,
I definitely know that feeling.
but
Please give Lindsay my condolences on the passing of the Queen. She was a great lady.
Mine as well.
you will
With
not be the first that I have been able to pass that along because I ran into a young lady, my age, went to high school with, and they dearly adore one another, and the we have not seen her in years, but it's just because people drift apart.
Hmm.
You know,
Life's that way.
yeah, exactly, and that's another wrench in the toolbox.
yeah,
Sometimes it's a really big wrench, but
Misty and I were watching Rings of Power on Prime. I was
how is
watching it
that?
from my first. I like it. Um,
Good, good.
it's a lot of non-canonical stuff so far, but who knows how it will segue into canon. Some very interesting stuff. Um, Galadriel is a badass. Um,
Yes, and she always was. But
Hmm.
I was watching something just last night that was comparing the portrayal in Rings of Power with the stuff that Tolkien wrote in Unfinished Tales, and uh, there's several other books. Some of them he had never even got past first base on, and never, and Chris Tolkien has had to flesh them out from his dad's notes, and they were comparing it to the uh, same character in Lord of the Rings, which is fully fleshed out with footnotes and appendices and the whole 9 yards. Oh Lord, I'd love to write something with footnotes and appendices. Um, it seems so erudite.
the
Um,
two Hobbit leads really remind me of a female version of Merry and Pippin.
Hmm.
mm,
Um, but we were watching that when we got the text from our youngest that Queen Elizabeth had passed, and we immediately paused, and okay, ran is a stretch, limped quickly in here to the office so I could actually look it up to see if it was just some BS thing going through her school or whatever, or if we were getting punked or anything like that. And Misty and I just sat there for a few minutes, like, holy shit, wow, we we never expected this day to come.
yeah. Um,
Now we did do a lot of joking that she was going to be immortal. I mean, it was going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
her, some cockroaches, and Keith Richards after the apocalypse,
mhm.
and maybe a couple of sentient raccoons.
Oh, I could jokingly drop in references to a couple of writers I know that would probably survive just about any damn thing, but I won't because this is not a joking matter.
No.
So yeah, but this is how legends are born. We're
Hmm.
actually watching a new mythology taking place. It hasn't been converted from history to mythology yet, but it's going to go there in the
Give
next
it
1,000 years.
give it 250. I'd say probably 250 weekly.
Eh, um,
I mean,
well,
in 250, there's a very good possibility that monarchies in general will be mythology. With the way
this
that
is
the
true.
nations are tending.
And that's going to cripple a lot of fantasy writers without having that structure being part of the, as Carl would say, Zeitgeist. Um, it's how do you write lords and ladies and kings and queens when that is so far removed from everyday experience and
I
common
don't think
historical
we'll ever get
reference?
away from King Arthur's legends or
Mm-hmm.
Robin Hood's legends.
Let's
So
hope not. Let's
as
hope
long
not.
as those two exist in our common, and they, I would say that those two legends right there have probably made it into genetic memory because how many things do we do that someone's not looking at, but we see the round table, you see
Mhm.
Arthur's court.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, social justice nowadays, you know, can take on that Arthurian Camelot type thing. It's because the big players allege that they want a round table where there's no one at the head. And I say allege because I think there's a lot of stuff in there where people are starting
Mm,
shit. Um,
yeah. I hesitate to go there, but I think there's.
there's a lot of people that like to be offended on other people's behalf, but the idea that they spout that they want is a gorgeous idea.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they truly want it or not, that's another story.
Yeah.
But it's that is a beautiful thing. That is a core of social justice. Is this we want everyone to be able to see eye to eye. There's no one at the head. We are all part of a common thing, and our committees, and our associations, and all that really tie into all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then especially nowadays, you are going to definitely feel that Robin Hood vibe coming back because we are definitely living in an age where we're feeling like we're being taxed in a manner that we aren't going to survive. Who is going to come out of the woodwork and rob from the rich and and give to the poor and help us back out, reach that hand down?
Well,
Uh,
and the fact that there are so many authors who are still writing about that age. I mean, look at Michaela's works.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's poured some fantasy into it, but it's still about the medieval times. She has the king and queen and the court.
Hmm.
what's
And
about 3 or 4
when
times
that
per
has
decade?
not existed for a very, very long time,
Time,
when
yes.
it's one of those things that has drifted on into so far back in history that it's alien
Mm-hmm.
to us, can we still relate to that? I'd like to think that we can because there's there's this there's this thing in the back of everybody's mind, and I do mean everybody's mind, where this sort of mythology still exists. Even if we got different words for it, even if we got different terms for it, but it's there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's look at Paul Bunyan and Mike Fink, the riverboatman, and things like that from U.S. history that are much, much
Pecos
younger.
Bill and
Pecos
Yeah.
Bill, thank you. Yes, indeed. Perpetual
um,
Mountain Ranch, yes.
was
Wild
it
Um,
Bill Hookup.
Tall Tales? there was a movie back in my day when I was young. I want to say Bill Paxton was Pecos Bill or Wild Bill Hickok or one of those. I think Oliver Platt might have been Paul Bunyan and hey Gary.
Hey,
Hey,
Gary.
Gary, you
And
you
it,
caught us just in the. Oh, we're already overtime, but
Yep.
uh,
I think it
You
was
woke
Tom
up and you really woke up.
well, I'm sorry, but been a busy
You,
day.
I know.
Uh,
Hey, no, don't worry about that. But it
I was
is
I was
time
glad
to
I was
say
able to
goodnight,
jump in,
Gracie.
but
well
I'm really sorry that I missed the parts that I went through. But these things
between
they happen. I,
your Odan and my George Takai, flavor of Odan, he doesn't know whether to
uh,
be excited or scared.
didn't hear either one. Um,
Well, you perked right up
I
right after
probably
both of them.
just woke up because I was thirsty again. Uh,
Dang. And I'm not affecting you anymore.
darling, you never have to worry about that. Oh dear, I am dangerous.
Honey,
Oh,
I like that kind of danger.
well, that's what I'm good with. I come by it honestly. I got it from my dad. Uh, hey, there is a reason why mom and dad were married for almost 50 years, 60 years.
Oh, Kiri, that was wrong in so many levels.
Uh, that was a mic check one too. Uh,
Oh
oh Lord, how I can make puns in a different language now. Ah,
no.
let's not go there. Um,
That's what she said.
no, she said, let's go there.
No, that was me.
Madam, you interest me strangely. Ah, Lord, so many cultural references, so little time, and I still got to get up at 6 o'clock.
Yes,
Ah,
honey. Say
mm.
goodnight, please.
Good night,
Look,
Gracie.
Good, roll the bedtime story.
All
Yeah,
right.
folks.
Thank you
See y'all
both for being
later.
here. Thank you for waking me up at the last minute. I'm sorry.
It's been a
Maybe
pleasure.
we can do this even better Sunday morning. Um, and I will do my best to get the green room kicked off tomorrow night. Maybe not on time, depending on how long a nap I have to take after work tomorrow. But um, next time we have a comparative mythology discussion, we are going to nail it to the wall like Martin Luther with the, well, a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
mispronounce theses, but okay. And let me go over here and click that, and let me go to
Night, everybody.
that's the one.
Bye, folks.
And thank you for being with us, and thank you for watching me nod off, and thank you to Donna and Rich for keeping everything interesting until I became conscious again and ruined it all. But
Night, Carrie.
Bye, Kiri.
we shall see you all anon, or even if we know your name. Uh, Good night.
Transmission overload.
System will shut down. 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 System will shut down.